What comes to your mind when you think of Roman gladiators, slaves, criminals, or perhaps unwilling participants forced into a life of brutal combat for the entertainment of others? Such are the common misconceptions that shroud the truth about these iconic figures of ancient Rome. The image of a gladiator clad in armor standing in the center of a colossal amphitheater ready to fight to the death has been ingrained in our minds. The narrative of gladiators as slaves or criminals forced into a life of bloodshed has been perpetuated by countless movies and books. But is this the complete picture? Were all gladiators really slaves or criminals? Let's debunk some myths. Not all gladiators were slaves, nor were they all criminals. The fact is, many of these brave men were not forced into the arena, but they chose it. They were volunteers, individuals who willingly stepped into the ring, driven not by coercion, but by a thirst for fame and fortune. Yes, you heard it right. They were people who saw the arena as a stage, a platform where they could attain glory and amass wealth. These volunteers came from all walks of life. Some were soldiers looking for a new challenge, others were freedmen seeking to improve their social status, and there were even those of noble birth who saw the potential for fame and recognition in the arena. They were not hapless victims, but ambitious individuals who saw a unique opportunity in the gladiatorial games. This is not to say that every gladiator was a volunteer. Indeed, many were slaves or prisoners of war, thrust into the arena against their will. However, the notion that all gladiators were unwilling participants is a gross oversimplification. The reality was far more complex, far more nuanced. So, how did this fascinating tradition of voluntary gladiators come to be? Let's journey back to the early days of the Roman Empire to find out. The origins of gladiatorial games are shrouded in mystery and steeped in the traditions of ancient Rome. These bloody spectacles, which would later define the Roman Empire in the eyes of many, didn't spring from the minds of emperors or generals, but rather from something far more somber: funeral rites. In the early days, it's believed that these combative displays were part of a ritual to honor the dead. The first recorded gladiatorial contest in Rome was held in 264 BC as part of a funeral ritual called a munus, where 3 pairs of gladiators fought to the death to honor the deceased. This was not a form of random violence but a sacred ceremony, a gift to the gods and spirits of the departed. However, as Rome grew and expanded, so too did the scale and frequency of these games. The munus transformed from a private event into a public spectacle. The Romans, known for their love of spectacle and grandeur, saw in these games not just a religious rite, but a form of entertainment that could also serve political purposes. Emperors and politicians began to sponsor these games as a means to gain popularity with the masses. The arenas, once the sites of somber funerary rites, became stages for extravagant displays of combat and bravery. Gladiators, whether they were slaves, criminals, or volunteers, became celebrities in their own right, their names chanted by the crowds, their victories celebrated with public monuments. By the time of the late Republic and early Empire, these games had become a central part of Roman culture. They were no longer just funeral rites, but grand spectacles that showcased the power and might of Rome, as well as the courage and skill of the gladiators. As the popularity of these games grew, so did the need for more gladiators. And as we'll see, not all of them were forced into this life. Despite the common belief, not every gladiator was a slave or a criminal. In fact, many were volunteers. These volunteers, known as auctorati, were often free men who chose to enter the arena of their own volition. Some were motivated by the prospect of financial gain, while others sought the thrill of the fight, the roar of the crowd, and the glory that came with victory. Even some women who were typically barred from combat could be found among the ranks of these voluntary gladiators. The motivations for these volunteers varied widely. For some, it was a way to escape poverty. The life of a gladiator, while dangerous, offered a steady income and the potential for immense rewards. A successful gladiator could earn enough to support themselves and their families, and some even amassed considerable fortunes. Others were drawn to the arena by the promise of fame. A skilled and charismatic gladiator could become a popular figure, adored by the masses and immortalized in art and literature. Some voluntary gladiators were even members of the Roman elite, who saw the arena as a platform to showcase their courage and martial prowess. Once they committed to the life of a gladiator, these volunteers underwent rigorous training. They lived in gladiatorial schools known as ludus, where they honed their skills under the watchful eyes of experienced trainers. These institutions provided not just training but also food, shelter, and medical care, ensuring that the gladiators were in peak condition for their fights. But the life of a voluntary gladiator was not without its hardships. They faced the constant risk of injury or death in the arena, and their lives were often cut tragically short. Yet despite these dangers, many volunteers embraced the gladiatorial lifestyle, driven by the promise of glory and the thrill of the fight. These volunteers were willing to risk their lives for a chance at glory, but as we'll see, the golden age of gladiators was not to last. The golden age of gladiators lasted for centuries, but like all great things, it eventually came to an end. As we delve into the twilight of this era, we find a confluence of factors that led to the decline of gladiatorial games. Firstly, there was a shift in societal values. Over time, the Romans began to question the morality of these brutal spectacles. The allure of the arena, once a symbol of valor and courage, began to wane. The citizens of Rome started to view the games as a grotesque display of violence rather than a celebration of bravery. The growing distaste for bloodshed was a significant factor in the decline of gladiatorial games. Economic factors also played a role. The cost of maintaining gladiatorial schools, providing for the gladiators, and staging the games was immense. As the Roman Empire faced economic strain, these extravagant expenditures became harder to justify. It was a luxury the empire could no longer afford. The extravagant games, once a testament to the empire's wealth, became a symbol of its financial decline. The rise of Christianity had a profound impact as well. The Christian faith, with its teachings of compassion and love, was fundamentally at odds with the brutal spectacle of the arena. As Christianity spread throughout the empire, it brought with it a new set of values that challenged the very existence of the games. The church's influence helped to foster an environment in which the gladiatorial games were not just seen as distasteful, but morally wrong. The decline of the gladiatorial games was not sudden, but a gradual process. It was the result of changes in societal values, economic realities, and the rise of a new faith that questioned the morality of such brutal entertainment. As the empire changed, so did its appetite for gladiatorial games, and with it, the era of voluntary gladiators came to a close. So what have we learned about Roman gladiators today? We've uncovered a rich history that often gets overlooked in popular portrayals. We've debunked the common misconception that gladiators were solely slaves or criminals condemned to fight for their lives in the brutal spectacle of the arena. Instead, we've learned that many gladiators volunteered for this life, drawn by the promise of fame, fortune, and the thrill of the fight. We traced back the origins of the gladiatorial games, a tradition steeped in ancient funeral rites. The games evolved from this somber beginning into a grand spectacle of the Roman Empire, a testament to its power and grandeur. The games were a mirror of society, reflecting the empire's values of bravery, endurance, and martial skill. We delved into the rise of voluntary gladiators, individuals who willingly chose to step into the arena. These were men who saw in the gladiator's life a chance to rise above their station, to earn wealth, and to bask in the adulation of the crowd. They trained rigorously, honing their bodies into deadly weapons, and their lifestyle was one of discipline and bravery. Yet, even as we reveled in the glory and excitement of the games, we also noted their decline. As the Roman Empire changed, so too did the games, losing their prominence and eventually fading away. But the memory of the gladiators, the brave men who risked their lives in the arena, lived on. Next time you think of Roman gladiators, remember that they were more than just slaves or criminals. Many were volunteers who sought fame and fortune in the arena, a testament to the complex and fascinating history of the Roman Empire. Their story is a reminder of the many layers of history, the hidden narratives that lie beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered.